8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news. Edited by Danushka Madhawala and read by Indrani Senanayaka. The headlines. The President meets Indian Senior Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in New Delhi. India to establish an industrial zone in Trincomalee. Bangladesh pledges support for Sri Lanka's agricultural modernization program. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena stressed that the IMF agreement is a mandatory compliance for whoever comes to power. The railway strike has been called off. The Met Department has issued an advisory for strong winds and rough seas. Sagala Ratnayaka says that a new economy requires a generation with progressive attitudes. In foreign news, 9 Hindu pilgrims killed in bus attack in India's Jammu. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, currently in New Delhi, held a meeting today with Indian Senior Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. During the meeting, Mr. Jaishankar addressed the swift resumption of development projects initiated in Sri Lanka with Indian investments, which had been halted midway. He expressed his intent to visit Sri Lanka in the near future to oversee the progress of these activities. Senior Minister Jaishankar assured that he would visit Sri Lanka soon to coordinate the Prime Minister's visit and expedite the commencement of development projects funded by Indian investments. The discussion also covered India's neighbourhood first policy. Minister Jaishankar highlighted plans for an industrial zone in Trincomalee to be established by the Indian government, which will attract numerous Indian investors and potentially investors from other countries. President Wickremesinghe noted that the new Economic Transformation Act will devolve powers in agriculture, health, education and economic management to the provincial councils. President Wickremesinghe announced that estate land rooms will be designated as estate villages through a gazette notification allowing for their development under the Ministry of Home Affairs. He also extended warm congratulations to Minister S. Jaishankar on his reappointment. The President also recalled his invitation to the Indian Prime Minister to visit Sri Lanka in the near future. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has assured President Ranil Wickremesinghe of Bangladesh's commitment to support Sri Lanka's agricultural modernization program. The Sri Lankan President and the Bangladeshi Prime Minister are currently in New Delhi to attend the swearing-in ceremony of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two leaders engaged in bilateral discussions this morning, where Prime Minister Hasina assured her country's commitment to assist Sri Lanka to modernize agriculture. President Ranil Wickremesinghe also affirmed his commitment to dispatch a delegation of Sri Lankan agricultural experts to Bangladesh. Their objective is to study Bangladesh's agricultural modernization program through cooperative methods and gather valuable insights to enhance Sri Lanka's own agricultural modernization efforts. The leaders also deliberated on the prospect of signing a free trade agreement between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlighted the potential for such an agreement following the conclusion of the India Free Trade Agreement. Additionally, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh pledged to direct private investors from Bangladesh towards investment opportunities in Sri Lanka, further fostering economic cooperation between the two countries. Consideration was taken to the initiation of a passenger ferry service connecting Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. The President also assured the Prime Minister of Bangladesh that he would visit Bangladesh after the election. In response, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina expressed her satisfaction with the progress of Sri Lanka's economy under the leadership of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Minister of Transport, Highways and Mass Media, Dr. Bandula Gunawardena stressed the necessity of adhering to the loan agreements with the International Monetary Fund until 2028 while formulating the budget for the upcoming year 2025, regardless of the governing administration. He also highlighted the obligation for parties aspiring to assume state power to disclose their compliance with these agreements to the country. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena made these remarks during his participation in a media briefing held at the Presidential Media Centre today under the theme collective path to a stable economy. The Sri Lanka Railway Locomotive Operating Engineers Association has decided to call off their strike action. The trade union has reached this decision after a successful discussion with the Minister of Transport, Bandula Gunawardena. The Locomotive Operating Engineers Union of the Sri Lanka Railway launched a strike from midnight on Thursday over delays in second-class promotions of locomotive drivers and several other issues. However, in response to the allegations levelled by the trade union in question, the administrative officials of the Department of Railways said that the department has provided all possible solutions to address their issues. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
We continue with local news. The Met Department has issued an advisory for strong winds and rough seas. The advisory issued by the National Hazards Early Warning Centre for the sea areas off the coast extending from Kankisantare to Kalpitia via Mannar and from Hambantota to Batikolo via Pothubil. The sea areas extending from Kankisantare to Kalpitia via Mannar and from Hambantota to Pothubil will be very rough at times, with very strong gusty winds of about 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. The sea areas extending from Pothubil to Batikolo will be rough at times, with strong gusty winds up to 60 kilometers per hour. The naval and fishing communities are also requested to be attentive in this regard. The advisory issued at 4:30 p.m. today for the period until 4:30 p.m. tomorrow. Senior Advisor on National Security and Head of Presidential Staff Sagala Ratnayaka emphasized the need for a generation of youth with progressive attitudes to advance a new economy. He made these remarks at the special guest on the second day of the 6th session of the 5th Youth Parliament of Sri Lanka. The session took place on the 8th and the 9th at the Presidential Secretariat Auditorium. On the first day, the special guests included Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs Harin Fernando and Pasindu Gunaratne, Chairman and Director General of the National Youth Service Council. That ends the local segment of news.
Elevate your life with People's Bank Excelsior. A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Sri Lanka's tourism industry continues to chalk up a striking performance, ranking in over $1.4 billion in revenue during the first 5 months of 2024, marking a staggering 87% surge compared to the same period last year. The boost in revenue generation during the first 5 months is particularly significant, as it took the country almost 9 months to reach a similar milestone the previous year. The robust performance not only attributes to a strong recovery, but also highlights the industry's potential for growth and resilience in the face of adversity. Tourism earnings in May amounted to $154 million, reflecting a 54% increase year on year.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
We now take a look at Watchlight. Minister of Shipping and Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva says that the colloquial customs law will soon be removed and new amendments that match to the demands of today would be introduced within this year. The minister was speaking at the 7th Annual General Meeting of the Sri Lanka Association of NVOCC Agents, Sri Lanka Logistics and Freight Forwarders Association on Friday. The minister said that during a visit to the customs he found items that were not cleared for 20 years. And the reason given was that it was pending legal action that was initiated by the customs.
Coming up, world news.
First, the headlines. 9 Hindu pilgrims killed in bus attack in India's Jammu. Switzerland flags cyber attacks, disinformation ahead of Ukraine summit. North Korea sends another wave of trash balloons into South Korea. 9 people have died and 33 injured after suspected militants fired on a bus carrying Hindu pilgrims in the Indian Federal Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Police said that the driver lost control after the attack, causing the bus to plunge into a gorge in Rese district in Jammu. While rescue operations have concluded, a search operation by the Indian Army and police is underway to track down the attackers. Officials said Prime Minister Narendra Modi had taken stock of the situation and asked for the best medical care to be provided to the injured. Switzerland has registered an increase in cyber attacks and disinformation in the run-up to a summit this weekend that aims to create a pathway for peace in Ukraine. 90 states and organizations have registered to take part in the talks due to be held at a resort near the central city of Lucerne from the 15th to the 16th of June, roughly half of them from South America, Asia, Africa and the Middle East. Switzerland said Russia has not been invited, but the Swiss government said the talks aimed to jointly define a roadmap on how to involve both it and Ukraine in a future peace process. North Korea has yet again sent hundreds of trash-laden balloons towards its southern neighbor, reigniting a tit-for-tat exchange after South Korean activists sent floating packages into the other direction, carrying K-pop and K-dramas on USB sticks. Seoul's Joint Chief of Staff said about 330 balloons carrying bags of trash had been sent by North Korea since Saturday night, of which about 80 have landed in South Korea. The JCS said waste paper and plastic were found in the packages and there were no substances hazardous to safety. To end this bulletin of world news, the headlines again. Nine Hindu pilgrims killed in bus attack in India's Jammu. Switzerland flags cyber attacks, disinformation ahead of Ukraine summit. North Korea sends another wave of trash balloons into South Korea. And that ends this bulletin of world news.
Development news.
We now take a look at development news. Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industry Mahinda Amarveera said that last week the government decided to increase the 2,500 rupee monthly allowance given to the 34,000 preschool teachers in Sri Lanka to 5,000 rupees. The minister had a discussion with the representatives of the preschool teachers organisation at Agunakala Palace yesterday, and at the moment the minister mentioned this matter. The minister said that this issue was discussed in the Cabinet Subcommittee meeting last week. The minister said that the President had instructed the Cabinet Subcommittee to increase the 2,500 rupee allowance of preschool teachers to 5,000 rupees.
Moving on with sports news.
It has been decided to hold the semi-final matches of the main Interclub T20 tournament on the 24th of this month, which was postponed due to the continuous rain. The semi-finals will be held on the 26th of this month and the final on the 28th. The two semi-finals and the final are scheduled to be held at the Borella P. Savarnamuthu Stadium, and that was sports news.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account. NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
State Minister of Finance Ranjit Balapitiya last week announced that the government is progressively implementing measures to develop and regularize tax revenue collection through its various revenue departments. Speaking during the parliamentary debate on the Public Debt Management Act last Friday, CM Balapitiya highlighted the role of the Parliamentary Committee on Ways and Means in overseeing the country's financial affairs. The State Minister emphasized that this oversight has been instrumental in supporting policy changes and improving revenue collection strategies. Mr. Siyamalapitiya noted that the Inland Revenue Department is already leveraging new recommendations to streamline taxpayer registration processes and enhance the recovery of outstanding taxes.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු ගින හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
A memorandum of understanding was signed today between the Ministry of Agriculture and Plantation Industries and the Government of Oman with the aim of boosting agricultural activities in both countries. The event covered by this MOU included official visits by researchers, studies and research, promotion of import and export of agricultural products, and many other things that were agreed upon. The Omani ambassador, who expressed his opinion, said that the Minister of Agriculture will evaluate the steps taken by the government for the development of the agricultural sector in Sri Lanka and will provide the necessary support to Sri Lanka.
Weather report.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. Several spells of showers will occur in the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Matara districts. Fairly heavy showers of about 75 millimeters are likely at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Nuwara district. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the Uva province in the evening or at night. Strong winds of about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour can be expected at times over the western slopes of the Central Hills, the northern, north-central and northwestern provinces and in the Trincomalee, Hambantota and Monaragala districts. To end tonight's news broadcast, the headlines again. The President meets Indian Senior Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in New Delhi. India to establish an industrial zone in Trincomalee. Bangladesh pledges support for Sri Lanka's agricultural modernization program. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena stressed that the IMF agreement is a mandatory compliance for whoever comes to power. The railway strike has been called off. The Met Department has issued an advisory for strong winds and rough seas. Sagala Ratnayaka says that a new economy requires a generation with progressive attitudes. In foreign news, 9 Hindu pilgrims killed in bus attack in India's Jammu. That ends tonight's news broadcast. The time reads 3 minutes past 9 o'clock. This is Radio Sri Lanka.